We are
This
live.
meeting is being recorded.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Hope that you're doing extremely well, and thank you for all that you're doing. I know many of you are wrapping up or getting close to wrapping up the semester and about to celebrate your students as they walk across the graduation stage. And so for today, we're going to share some updates with you, long anticipated updates on the high cost workforce program. And this is our kickoff webinar. I am, for those of you who do not know, I'm Dr. Levy Brown. I have the honor of serving as the Senior Vice President, Chief Academic Officer for our esteemed system. And I am joined by my great colleagues here from the system office as well. We have Ms. Brandy Andrews, our Vice President Financial Officer. We have Dr. Lisa Eads, our AVP for Academic Programs, Dr. Kim Gold, our Chief of Staff, and Mr. Nate Humphreys, our AVP of Workforce and Continuing Education. And so we wanted to provide you all with an overview of the workforce or high cost workforce programs. We have had some discussions. This has been vetted, and so we wanted to share with you where we are, roll out a timeline, and also answer any questions that may come up during this particular session today. So once again, thank you for joining us. And so I'm going to ask my colleagues, Dr. Eads and AVP Humphrey, to share updates here. And I'm going to turn over the screen sharing option as well.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. I am going to share the screen now. Fingers crossed, technology will cooperate. And good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Brown, can you see the screen?
Yes, looks good.
Right. And Nate, can you also see?
Yes, I can. Great. All right.
Perfect. We're ready to go.
All right. So folks, we're going to start off today with just a quick overview of the program guidelines to give you an opportunity to, if you have not already, to see the information that's contained there. We are all adults here, so we are not planning to read this document to you today. Don't want to put you all to sleep. But just going to hit a few highlights throughout the document today to make sure that you're comfortable with where the information is located. And of course, here on this first page, just pieces of information around the timeline for the RFP process to make a proposal to request these funds. Also, the contact information for Dr. Eads and myself, as well as Director Michelle Lair and Director Karen Tikkanen provided for you here. This is a new approach to the way that we're trying to pull these RFPs together. So you'll notice that there is a little bit of depth to the information, but the intention is that you have a single document with everything located in one spot for you. So the table of contents provides that outline for you of each of the components of the RFP or the call for RFP responses. So as you know, a very exciting opportunity was included in the state budget for up to $5.2 million for high cost workforce startup funds. This was and is linked here to the legislation, Section Law 2021-180, and specifically Section 6.7 provides some detailed information around the prescriptions that were provided by the General Assembly for this program. This basically is restricted to North Carolina community colleges, and as a part of that, colleges may apply or may apply as a consortium, so as a group of colleges, but are restricted to programs that are at the Tier 1A or the Tier 1B level. I have been using the word program, but I want to make sure that you understand that that's a lowercase p in program. So the legislation is inclusive of both our curriculum offerings as well as workforce continuing education courses or pathways within those courses at the Tier 1A or 1B level. I do want to make one distinction since we are talking about who may apply here, and that is around the consortium piece. Specifically, what that's saying is that if one or more colleges want to work together as a collaborative group, you can apply as a group for that. You would simply apply as a consortium. The legislation does restrict colleges to one application per fiscal year. And so if a group of colleges wants to jointly apply, that would count as that one application for each of the colleges participating in that consortium. So I want to make sure that that's clear today as well. Again, we've already kind of spoken briefly about the eligible programs. The key takeaway here that hasn't been mentioned is about the definition of what is new to the college. And so specifically, that is called out here as programs or courses for which the college has not been funded over the last 3 academic years. So if you are in the process of starting a program right now, those programs, so long as you've not received those budgeted FTEs for that, those would be eligible under this definition, that distinction there and that kind of gray space between new to college and in process of being new to college, if you will. So just want to note that definition there. Application process is going to follow our normal RFP response. So this will be posted sometime at the end of business today on the System Office's RFP website, and there is an email address here, a shared box for you to be able to support, submit the applications, if you will. There is a cap on proposals at $500,000 for the course of the 2 years, and so want to note that that is the length of time is called out in the legislation, and so your proposal would need to fit within that budget allowance. And there is a series of allowable expenses that are provided for you here. What I want to note here is just that the use of funds beyond those purposes is not expressly prohibited, but it would require you to reach out and explain kind of what that is, see if we're able to fit it within those buckets, and then if not, we are able to, if we're able to come to a mutual understanding there, be in a position to approve or not something beyond those allowable uses there. I do want to note specifically that these funds are not intended to supplant Perkins funding. And so I want to note that if you currently have dollars that are allocated for those purposes, we have to be aware of that during the process of administering this program as well. Here you'll see a detailed listing, kind of A through H, of each of the components that we would expect to see in a response to the call. So program information or course information, as well as some details that are provided about how, if you are applying as a consortium, you'll need to detail that information. Specifically, whenever applying as a consortium, we'd need to have some kind of letter of understanding or letter of commitment signed by each of the member consortium college's president in order to make sure that we understand that we're all in this together, and so that we can accept that from the System Office as the singular application from all of the member institutions. So basically the information that you see here, that demonstration of need, as well, quick highlight for you here is that there's an opportunity to leverage the work that you've already done. So if you've identified something within your comprehensive local needs assessment, for example, there's no need to reinvent that wheel. We would love to see you being able to save time by being able to pull that narrative directly off of your CLNA, which is a requirement of your Perkins programs, to be able to demonstrate how you've already worked on with your employer and regional groups to identify what those needs might be. Finally, you'll see some breakdowns here. There is a matching requirement that's called out in the legislation, and so you'll notice that here underneath the section around the budget and budget narrative. So want to make sure that you're noting that based on the size of the institution. So just want to note that bullet here. And then essentially from there, you have your assurances, timeline, and then submitted information. If you are applying to a new to the college or new to the system program, for example, or proposing a new workforce continuing education course at the tier 1A or 1B levels, there is a process that's lined out for you here and linked out from the RFP. And so specifically what we're saying is that we would, if you need to turn this in and that's still in progress, we at least need that planning notification or that paperwork initiated at the time that you're submitting your proposal, so that we can see that in progress. And obviously funding would be contingent upon those things moving forward. There's a list of some optional attachments for you as well, but some things that I would say optional but highly encouraged, things like support letters, demonstration of industry and employer engagement, and their support, and hopefully depth of engagement is something else that I would note there. Are they working with you on apprenticeship opportunities, work-based learning opportunities, internships, etc.? Moving beyond just recreating that work environment to actually involving the student learning experience in the work environment would certainly be things of high value that we would hope to see in the proposals. And so from there, some notes here around reporting. So first report would be due on or before September 15th of 2023. So noting that for you. And any reporting that would be submitted by a consortium, we would need to see that both for the consortium as a whole, but then obviously the detail by what were the engagements by each of the member institutions as well. A note here around redistribution, just that if funds remain unutilized by the end of the second fiscal year, there is a clause here for those to be reverted, and that is in alignment with the legislation. And then any future funding would be based on if all dollars are not awarded this funding cycle or any reversions that may come back. And a note there that, of course, if a college is in the process of starting a new program and things do change, as we know, certainly make sure that you make us aware as quickly as possible so that we can get those dollars pulled back in for redistribution to make a future cycle possible if we have unallocated or unawarded dollars. We are fortunate that these funds do not revert. And so what that basically means is that they are ours to be able to use and hopefully get out the door to start effective new programs. But that also means that we have the joy of making sure that we keep those cycles running until we get these dollars fully out and into use. There's a handful of appendices. The first is a budget template for you to use that aligns with the allowable expenses that were noted up in the narrative. And the second appendix relates to the evaluation criteria. And so this gets into the details for you around the matrix of how each proposal would be evaluated, hoping that this adds some clarity for everyone. The first of which, part one of those, is basically, does the proposal meet minimum qualifications to be reviewed? So does it contain all of the required sections and assurance documents, basically a letter of assurance to make sure that the president or presidents have agreed to the submission. And then the overall proposal evaluation in part two takes you on a scale of 1 to 5 through each of those buckets with examples of what we would be looking for in those responses to the RFP so that you know kind of what is our definition of a good detailed proposal back on this. Would highlight demonstrated demand and specifically the use of state, regional, and local labor market data to demonstrate that demand. Making sure that you're also not just noting the demand side, but also the family sustaining wage opportunities that would be provided by the proposed program as well. If you're applying as a consortium, of course, making sure that you're thinking about that as what are the demands within each of the service areas that would be a part of that consortium, and then what would be the wage outcomes or the expected wage outcomes for learners in those areas as well. Again, that demonstrated employer engagement, I think here we're really emphasizing that if you have letters, make sure that those letters are demonstrating the depth of that partner engagement. Again, a call out here for would there or could there be opportunities for work-based learning, internships, apprenticeship, etc. And then the addition here at the end is this bonus set of points that would be available for collaboration and sustainability. So essentially, this is we've heard loud and clear many discussions around the need for how can we start to incentivize collaboration among the colleges. And so here's a first attempt at that. So what you can see here is the 1 through 5 bonus points based on the narrative of how is that consortium going to work towards regional collaboration and sustainability of the program. So essentially, those shared responsibilities for pulling this together. Specifically, we know 1A and 1B programs and courses are very expensive to operate, but also have great outcomes for our students. So noting that here. So that's a high-level overview of what all is contained in the document. Lisa, were there any places where you wanted to add some additional detail?
Sure. The only thing I would lift up is that we tried to leverage the existing structure for applications or courses that we already had in place. And Nate mentioned that previously in the document. So the documents in the curriculum procedures reference manual that speak to applications and the documents that would be attached to those. That's also a piece of this work. And also the comprehensive local needs assessment that you're already doing for Perkins. So we're not trying to have you duplicate efforts. We're certainly trying to expand upon what's already out there for our normal processes and linking that to this opportunity for funding. I'm happy to scroll to any document. I see we're getting some questions. Any place in the document you all would like to go to? Thank you, Alex, for noting that we're recording and we'll upload this on our YouTube channel. So we've gotten a question from Jamie at PCC. The document that we're showing is the cleaned up version of what went out. So the things that I note that have been perhaps updated is we've added language around consortiums to give colleges a chance to collaborate. We also changed the date for today's webinar because that has been changed a couple of times, just getting it all scheduled. So the length of pages now is 16 because of those changes primarily around consortium language. That is certainly something updated in the document that we will be posting.
Correct. So there was an addition down in part 2 of the evaluation criteria, I think, that pushed us over into that extra page number there, plus the cover sheet and the last page addition as well. But I think overall, content-wise, the only additional content that you should see is the relation to consortium.
Yes. So we've got a question about collaboration. So Zach is asking, as you score the bonus portion of the regional collaboration, are we looking for collaboration between colleges, or will collaboration perhaps be between a community college and university partners to meet that criteria? I'm going to scroll to that section, Nate. And I apologize.
Sure. And I think, Zach, that's a fantastic question. I think, the original probably framing of that was around thinking around how could colleges collaborate together. But I think that you raise an excellent point around how are we making sure that we're thinking about this from a comprehensive pathway for the student, right? So there is a detailed section where we do in fact call out the need for thinking about on-ramps and exit ramps from our programs. And I am double checking myself in the document right now, but I think that that's an excellent point there, and that would certainly fall within the innovation components there and those bonus points. Yes, and so the thing that I was thinking of in the document is down, I think, on page 8 in the optional attachment section. So talking around career pathway partner support, educational on-ramps and transfer partners. So yes, I think that being in that optional attachment place, that would be a strong fit into the bonus point section, making sure that we can see how there's a comprehensive approach to the learner entire career pathway.
And Nate, I would just highlight these suggested optional attachments are also those that we list as optional in the existing program application process. So again, lifting up what you're already going to be doing for program applications if you're coming through the curriculum side of the house. Okay, do we have any other questions?
They're letting us off easy today, Lisa.
I'm wondering if folks might want to unmute or type in the chat. We have a team online to help answer questions. We also have folks from our finance office. Want to acknowledge them as well. If there are questions about budget and finance outside of the programs questions that Nate and I and Dr. Brown and Dr. Gold could answer. if we don't see any other questions, I would be happy to show folks where this will be on the website when we get an opportunity to do that. That someone already prompted me for that in our questions, reading my mind. So we'll get to that in just a second. As far as where you can find that, I will walk you through. But we got a question from Rob about the use of funds for facility improvements.
So I think that's an excellent question, Rob. And I'm hoping that one of our finance team can rein me in before I go out on a limb here. These are operating budget funds. They are not capital budget funds. And so I think that that is going to have an impact on your ability to do anything beyond the existing brick walls and footprint of a building. But if, I believe that certainly it would be able to be used for something like an upfit of a lab or a particular space in order to be able to accommodate equipment. For example, I remember having to have a doorway expanded in order to be able to get equipment into a lab once. And so that was something that was allowable under operating funds. But I'm hoping, do we have someone on from finance that might be able to address that specifically?
Hey there, Nate. So yeah,
Hey,
I mean,
friends.
you as far as these are operating funds, these are not capital projects, and so they need to be activities that would be within the operating budget of the college.
Okay, so thank you, Brandy, for that. We got a question from Hannah about partnerships involving K-12 collaboration. It seems very similar to our university collaboration. It, again, isn't prohibited and certainly would be considered. Dr. Brown, I don't know if you have something further to add there.
No, Dr. Eads, you carried it, covered it really well. So we would definitely give consideration, as Nate talked about earlier on, the on-ramps, the positive collaborations, and thinking of that holistically. So we're in a good place there with that consideration.
Okay, thank you. And I see Rob, faculty prep, it's faculty prep. We got you. Any other questions before we go to the website to show you where this will be posted? Again, it'll be posted by close of business today. It's not there yet, but we'll certainly show you where to find the location. If Dr. Brown or Dr. Gold, y'all are ready for us to move to that.
Yes, please do.
Okay, I'm going to make the attempt to show my screen. I think I'm still showing a screen. Can you see a web page? Should be seeing the community college homepage now.
Yes, looks good.
Wonderful. Okay, so when you're on our homepage, if you'll click on 4 colleges and then click on academic programs, and you will see a link to request for proposals. Click on read more. And again, later this afternoon, you'll see the RFP, both the Word version and the PDF version populate the site. So we have not yet uploaded it. We want to have the webinar first, but it will be on this link later today. Any other questions or comments? We're happy to answer or provide additional details if needed.
One thing I'll add, Lisa, just as we're giving folks a moment, is that the document does have several links to other resources within it as well. So certainly links out to the legislation, but also links to the Curriculum Procedures Reference Manual, to the Workforce Continuing Education course request forms, et cetera, to try and assist and make things simple for you, so that we tried to anticipate where you might want to quote unquote punch out to get to those additional details that we make reference to. But certainly if you see other places where that would be helpful, let us know and we'll do what we can to make sure that those additional links are in the places. where they are needed as well.
Thank you, Nate, for providing that, and just referencing the website we were just on. That direct link is here under the deadlines and milestones area. And just want to draw attention to a standalone email address for submissions for the Programs and Student Services RFP. So you have a specific email address to send these into. Again, well, we have till December 15th to submit. Not sure if there are any questions from the group about the dates that we have listed here about Q&A and submissions. I'm not seeing any questions come in. Dr. Brown or Dr. Gold, is there anything further you'd like to share?
I will definitely yield to Dr. Gold as she may have some additional insight, but you all have done a fantastic job of covering this information. And so hopefully, well, I see another question has populated here. And that question is, did I understand that if we were to be awarded $500,000 the first year, we would receive the same dollar amount the second year?
So that's an excellent question. So the allocation, you would be applying for up to $500,000 as a one-time award that would span 2 fiscal years, right? So you would have the opportunity to use that over the span of 2 years of period of time, not that you would receive that as a two-time allocation. Okay, great question. Nice try, Andy.
Always, Nate, always.
Okay, so folks are asking for the direct link to the website in the chat, so I'll be glad to do that now. Again, note that if you log on at this moment, it will not be there. It'll be there by the end of today. And if you have any trouble locating it after today, just let one of us know. We'll be glad to get you to the right spot. Okay, I see a lot of thank yous in the chat, so thank you all. And I'm going to turn it back over to leadership to see if there's any last things that we need to share before signing off for the afternoon.
Well, look, thank you all for joining us once again, and kudos to Nate and Dr. Eads for taking us through this this process and going through the details of how this application piece will work. And I will turn it over to Dr. Gold as she may have some closing comments as our Chief of Staff.
No closing comments, but just thank you to the team and to everybody that joined today. And thank you to the President's Association for feedback on the application and just thinking how best to get these dollars out to our colleges. It is exciting that we were allocated this funding from the legislature. I think it demonstrates the importance of our programs and getting the workforce in North Carolina back in, well-trained and into the workplace. So feel free to reach out to the team if you have other questions as you talk about the application at your college, and just appreciate you all joining us this afternoon.